Well, this trip was a bit different. For one thing, it was a journey I was supposed to take in 2020. I had my visas, my hotels, my flights, and then COVID hit. I was pretty deflated. In a strange way, though, the universe seemed to have its own plans for this trip. And those plans revolved around my uncle, Steve Greenholz. A surgeon and mountain climber, he'd always been an inspiration to me. He'd climbed on every continent, including Antarctica. And 25 years ago, he climbed Everest. Even after being diagnosed with an extremely aggressive cancer, he fought, he climbed, and he never stopped pursuing great experiences. But as unstoppable as he was, life has its own plans, and last year, Uncle Steve finally passed away. His ashes were given to friends and family, and true to his adventurous spirit, some of his climbing partners decided to scatter them in places they had climbed together over the years. I hadn't planned this trip with a mission in mind. My uncle was still alive when I booked my flights, but now I found myself on a journey that would end in Nepal, the site of one of Steve's most meaningful climbs. And I realized I had a mission ahead of me. Of course, I first had to handle the inescapable culture shock that greets every big trip, plus the delirium that comes from 36 hours of sleepless travel. Airports are just the perfect liminal space. I mean, the longest walks in the most open corridors. You could walk miles and miles in here. But at least I'm told that the food court stays open at a reasonable hour in an international airport, as it should. Upon arriving in Delhi, I quickly realized that everything I'd heard was not only true, but understated. I'd seen chaotic traffic in Vietnam, yet in India the main form of communication is the horn, a deafening automotive cacophony. It's a language with its own intricacies, though to my ears it sounded like pure chaos. At my hotel, I decided to stay awake. The fastest way to beat jet lag is to keep busy until nightfall, so I stepped outside and was instantly hit by an oppressive heat that almost drove me back indoors. I should probably take a nap, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna stay up for another 10 hours and then crash, and then hopefully I won't have any jet lag. We'll see if I make it. Instead, I pushed onward down hot, grimy streets filled with unidentifiable smells and sounds until the cabbies spotted me, an American clearly lost. They pitched a grand tour of Delhi, but I insisted they take me only to the National Museum. I had just enough energy left to wander cool galleries of artifacts and, I hoped, enjoy some air conditioning. After a half-hearted haggle for the price, I reached the museum. It wasn't as air-conditioned as I'd hoped. But the statues and artwork all around made it clear how little I knew of the culture I'd entered. Gods and goddesses whose names I'd heard but barely understood. Unopened crates sat unguarded in hallways, mysteries inside. Everything felt foreign, and my energy drained fast. I overpaid for a tuk-tuk back to the hotel and waited for dinner. All right. I went out. I went to the National Museum of the National Indian Museum. Some really interesting artifacts there. But I'll tell you what, it's hot. It's very hot. That's why I'm not pointing the camera any lower, okay? Air conditioning is, it could be better. We do have this fan though. But with it being about 100 degrees out there, let's cross our fingers for some cooler nighttime temperatures. I managed to stay awake long enough to savor a rich chicken curry with garlic naan. The flavors reassured me that I could adapt to this overwhelming city. Next morning, I visited a few landmarks, then boarded a bus to Jaipur, the Pink City. En route, we stopped for breakfast, where I discovered puri bhaji, proof I wouldn't starve for tasty morning meals either. Jaipur's historic center, freshly repainted in rosy hues each year, follows one of India's earliest city plans: tidy streets, numbered shops, order within chaos. After dinner and a series of lively tuk-tuk rides, I crashed beneath a ceiling fan, knowing I'd rise before dawn for a bicycle tour. Beating the sun and traffic was worth the early alarm.
Do you have the food? I'm here for the food.
First stop was the cow restaurant. Cows in India roam freely.
Cow. Oh, I don't know if you're going to fit through there, buddy. I don't know if you're going to fit through there, my friend. All right.
Yet, I wondered why they lingered in a city of millions of people. As they ambled past, it clicked. They know where breakfast is served. Perhaps they even follow a daily schedule. Breakfast here, have a chai over there, bit of yoga in the park. Speaking of chai, we soon stopped at a stall famed for the best in town. Its reputation sealed by photos of Justin Trudeau and Prime Minister Modi sipping the brew. The chai came in single-use flower pot textured clay cups that you smash afterward for recycling. I may never look at a disposable coffee cup the same way again. Mid-bicycle tour, however, the spicy curry from the night before bubbled up, and I had the kind of emergency you never want in a place like this. My guide hustled me to a public restroom, and I thanked past me for packing toilet paper. Crisis was averted, and we rejoined the group for laughing yoga in the park. Before attending a Vishnu ceremony, it was like a concert where everyone knows the lyrics but you. Spectacular, bewildering, and proof I still had a lot to learn. Later, we climbed to Amber Fort, a 16th century stronghold now popular for pre-wedding photo shoots. Everywhere, impeccably dressed couples posed before these ornate backdrops. Also while visiting the Amber Fort, I saw my first stepwell, a hypnotic MC Escher-esque system for collecting rainwater in the hot province of Rajasthan. I was immediately reminded of the film The Fall, a beautifully photographed movie with many featured Indian locations. While this stepwell was not the one from the movie, it turned out that another prominent location was just minutes from our hotel. In the movie, a woman is cast into a labyrinth, and on realizing there's no escape, she throws herself from a tower. It turns out this was shot at Jantar Mantar, an astronomical observatory of sorts. And the tower from which she jumps is actually the world's largest stone sundial. Knowing I couldn't miss an opportunity to see a great movie location, I set out alone, and on arriving at the location, I immediately recognized shots from the movie. I was incredibly impressed with the mind of the filmmaker to re-envision a scientific set of instruments as a fantastical labyrinth. As much as I filmed, my shots couldn't match the vision of the movie, but I was reinvigorated, even in the blazing heat, by my visit to the site. After a couple of evening drinks, we departed Jaipur for Agra, home to India's most famous monument, the Taj Mahal. A roadside stop for sweetened lassi offered relief from the curry marathon. The bus ride gave our guide time to recount the story of Ganesh, which was entertaining, darkly comic, and also raising more questions than answers. On our arrival in Agra, we headed straight to the Taj. Built over a 22-year period in the 1600s for Emperor Shah Jahan's late wife, the Taj Mahal feels both of its era and timeless. Perfect symmetry, luminous marble, light that shifts hypnotically at sunset. I could have stared for hours just in peaceful awe if the world and a troop of monkeys hadn't interrupted. The first leg of the trip was over. I'd tasted spicy mutton curry, I'd inhaled Delhi's pungent streets, adapted to the constant horns, and survived the crushing heat. Well, mostly. Guys, it is hot out there. It is hot out there, and this air conditioner is not doing much for me. With the initial shock behind me, I was ready to look deeper, to understand the people and the beliefs that would shape the rest of my journey. Next, we headed to the small town of Orcha. The train ride was relatively short, but after watching videos of India's packed railways, I was nervous. India is the most populous country on Earth, and only so many people fit in one train car. Fortunately, our carriage was clean, spacious, and most important, air-conditioned. On arrival, I immediately appreciated Orcha's small-town vibe. Tourism exists here, but it's mostly domestic and religious, it seemed. That first evening, we attended a ceremony for Rama, the seventh incarnation of Vishnu. A quick primer, as I came to understand it, Hindus have many gods, yet 3 seem to dominate. Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Vishnu has appeared in 9 avatars: a fish, a tortoise, a boar, a man-lion, and several human forms. The 3rd human avatar is Rama, king and patron god of Orcha. Filming inside the ceremony was forbidden, but the energy matched the vibrant Vishnu rites I'd witnessed in Jaipur. Afterward, we found dinner. Orcha is largely vegetarian, perhaps influenced by the Jain community whose strict non-violence rules out eating meat entirely. Next morning, music blared from loudspeakers across the river. After breakfast, we toured the nearby forts and palaces. Their architecture displayed a hypnotic symmetry, door after door, window after window, tower after tower. I thought of the Hindu triad: creation, preservation, destruction. Each structure seemed to show the same balance, the same repetitive cycle. That repetition continued at the royal chhatris, tomb-like memorials to the region's rulers. Just as a king reigns, dies, and is succeeded, these structures embody an endless cycle, a theme that would deepen in our next stop, the holy city of Varanasi. To reach it, we boarded an overnight sleeper train, bunks stacked 3 high. I took the top, cramped but closest to the AC and free from midnight bathroom traffic. Balancing above a squat toilet on a moving train is a skill no traveler wants to fail. After a questionable amount of sleep, we arrived. I knew Varanasi straddled the Ganges and drew pilgrims who bathe in its waters, but that's about it. When talking to my doctor about where I'd be traveling, he had simply told me good luck when I mentioned Varanasi. A dawn walk through its maze-like alleys proved that if Delhi is lively, Varanasi is electric. For many Hindus, this is the place to die. I learned that a Hindu's ultimate aim is to escape the cycle of samsara, birth, death, rebirth. Success means achieving moksha and merging with the divine. Failure means being reborn to try again. Varanasi, it said, can help grant moksha through specific rituals. As an outsider, I couldn't completely understand all of the beliefs, but I saw evidence of belief all around me in the people and even in the buildings. At sunset, we reached the Ghats, broad stone steps leading down to the river, where funeral pyres burn all day and all night, year after year, forever. Each body is dipped in the Ganges, cremated, and the ashes are returned to the water, honoring the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Watching the flames, I was mesmerized by the dedication, the tradition, the entire process, and the beliefs which guide it. And I thought of my uncle's ashes. Given his love of culture and adventure, I felt compelled to leave a portion here. It seemed right. That night, I told my guide, and he sprang into action. At dawn, after a sunrise boat ride, he dropped me at a ghat where a holy man had just finished a ceremony where locals had been saying goodbye to their own loved ones. Led by this holy man, I was required to repeat phrases after him. Not knowing Hindi, I struggled, but he smiled and patiently walked me through each phrase, me speaking them as best I could. I also added sacred materials to the ashes, final offerings, a kind of re-merging of my uncle and the natural world. Locals watched as we stepped to the river's edge. I released my uncle into the water, only feet from where bathers sought their own purification. This city doesn't push the dead away into the past as unwanted reminders of our own mortality. In this place, people immerse themselves literally in the link between life and death. My uncle seemed welcome here. A motorcycle ride through the alleys reunited me with my group for one last stop. A tuk-tuk carried us to Sarnath, where Buddha gave his first sermon after enlightenment. Just as I was grasping Hinduism, Buddhism entered the story, and fatigue set in. I listened, knowing that tomorrow we'd cross into Nepal and visit the Buddha's birthplace, where more answers awaited. After one final meal in India and a solid night's sleep, we boarded a bus for the border. My mind buzzed with new memories and the promise of what lay ahead. In my bag, a small pouch of ashes still waited for its final resting place. As we approached the Nepal border, the rain began. We ducked into a tiny cafe until the downpour eased and then made our crossing. Some might call that an inauspicious start, but after India's searing heat, I was grateful for the cool temperatures. Formalities went as smoothly as one could hope in the weather, and we set off for Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha. What struck me first about Nepal was the relative quiet. The Indian car horn symphony that had filled my ears for days was gone. Horns still sounded now and then, but nowhere near as often, and the hush deepened as we reached Lumbini. With light rain falling and sunlight breaking through the clouds, it felt like a fitting welcome to a place that fostered a man of peace and balance. Cameras were forbidden inside the shrine, but when I emerged, I felt relaxed and revitalized. That evening, I ordered chicken seasoned with Szechuan peppercorn, a flavor I hadn't found in India, and I marveled at how one border could change so many things: food, weather, even people's faces. It felt like a mid-journey reset, and I had no idea what would come next. It turned out no one did, because the next morning, on our way to Chitwan National Park, our bus blew a tire. We pulled into a small gas station while the driver and his helper made repairs, just in time because the pavement soon gave way to rough dirt. Road work in Nepal seems perpetual, 1 minute smooth tarmac and the next just a dusty track. After hours of bumpy switchbacks, we stopped for lunch. A local cook produced a flavorful soup over the simplest stove, reminding me how little I accomplish in a fully stocked kitchen. Back on the road, we watched overloaded trucks squeeze past until the landscape changed again, forested lowlands signaling Chitwan. 367 square miles of protected wilderness, home to tigers, rhinos, elephants, and more. Our homestay just outside the park provided mosquito nets. The local Tharu people enjoy a natural resistance to malaria, but we did not. After a warm welcome, we set off on bicycles. Children waved and shouted greetings as we pedaled through the grassy fields. Near our destination, thumping electronic music drifted through the air. Dancers shouted, "Happy New Year," which was odd in April, until I learned that Nepal's Hindu lunar calendar begins in mid-April. For them, they were celebrating the beginning of 2082. We left the bikes and walked to a riverside bluff to watch the sunset. Chai appeared in the familiar clay cups, and I decided that if this was 2082, the future might just be all right. A shower back at the homestead refreshed me for the evening's festivities. Savory snacks followed by a traditional Tharu dance show, each dance symbolic with a narrative or purpose. I'm a self-confessed non-dancer, yet somehow ended up being pulled into the movement anyway, guaranteeing a sound night's sleep after all that pedaling and shuffling. The next day was devoted to wildlife. In a true preserve, nothing is guaranteed. Anyone who promises you a tiger is selling zoo tickets. So I settled in and just scanned the trees. Luck was with us. Within minutes, we spotted rhinos in the distance, their armored hides making them formidable looking. Before lunch, we drifted downriver in a canoe and caught 2 crocodiles sunbathing. Afterward, though tired and satisfied, I did agree to another trek, and I can't overstate what a good decision that was. We saw more rhinos, including mothers with calves. We saw boar, deer, and countless birds. For a few hours, we prowled tiger country, parking on a ridge at dusk in hopes one would appear at the river. Branches cracked, unseen animals called, the jungle pulsed. No tiger showed, but the place did feel thrillingly alive. Those baby rhinos knew the world, the tigers that might hunt them, the vultures waiting for the scraps, all part of another cycle. The next morning, I'd head toward the Himalayan foothills, realm of the gods and of my uncle's decades-old photographs. Our first stop, Pokhara, Nepal's tourism capital and launch point for treks into the Annapurna Range. Nestled beside a picturesque lake, Pokhara is a city of bustling shops, excellent restaurants, throngs of travelers, and more trekking gear stores than you could ever need. On our first morning, the rain lingered as we drove into the nearby hills to visit a small coffee plantation. The locals welcomed us with a homemade breakfast, and when the clouds finally broke, we learned just how intricate coffee harvesting really is, while enjoying sweeping valley views. With the weather clear, a few of us set out for a walk, first heading for a nearby peak where a towering statue of Shiva overlooks Pokhara. Nepalese visitors milled about, the cool, overcast sky making the lookout especially pleasant. Further down the slope stood the World Peace Pagoda, built by the Japanese Buddhist order Nipponzan Myohoji to promote global harmony. The rain returned, so we descended through the forest toward the lake, hoping to catch a boat across. At the dock, we learned crossings were suspended for a bit. A lightning strike had killed someone years earlier and boatmen refused to risk it. Fortunately, a little bar stood nearby, so we passed the time with beers and ciders while chatting with other stranded travelers. When the lightning ceased, we crossed in a gentle drizzle. I've always found rain cleansing, washing pollen from the air and refreshing the earth. And as we glided toward town, the Peace Pagoda silhouetted behind us, I felt cleansed too. After another superb dinner, we faced a choice: endure 10 hours of bumpy switchbacks to Kathmandu, or take a half-hour flight. A couple of us chose the skies. Flights in Nepal, we discovered, don't always honor the timetable, though. A brief delay before takeoff and another holding pattern over Kathmandu added some suspense. Still, we soon landed in the sprawling capital and set out to explore its many UNESCO World Heritage Sites. First stop was Swayambhu, the 1,500-year-old monkey temple, sacred to both Buddhists and Hindus, and famously home to a lively troupe of macaques. Stalls around the old stupa sold traditional thangka paintings, Tibetan Buddhist images on fabric. Many depict deities, narratives, or mesmerizing mandalas, geometric representations of stupas viewed from above. That background helped at our next site, Buddha Stupa, the largest spherical stupa in Nepal. Pilgrims walk clockwise, spinning prayer wheels to align with the cosmos' natural flow. Lacking a deep grasp of the theology, I gauged the stupa's importance based on the pilgrims' devotion that I saw, and their actions spoke volumes. From there, we visited the Pashupatinath temple and encountered a scene reminiscent of Varanasi, cremations along a riverside terrace. Smaller in scale yet equally moving, these rites placed the duty of lighting the pyre on the son of the family. I watched a young boy circle the shrouded body, touch a torch to its lips, and ignite the flame. Nearby, ashes from earlier funerals were swept into the river. I still carried the remainder of my uncle's ashes looking for the right place, but the mountains he'd climbed years earlier were still off in the distance. Our final stop of the day was Bhaktapur Durbar Square, the grandest of the old royal plazas. The area is always lively, but on that particular day, we'd accidentally stumbled into the annual Bisket Jatra festival. Dozens of men hauled a giant chariot through packed streets while onlookers crowded windows and rooftops. I lacked context again, but the crowd's energy needed no translation. My last full day in Kathmandu ended with dinner and farewells to my group. The next morning held one task: a scenic flight over the Himalayas to glimpse the realm of the gods and of daring uncles. Before departure, I realized somebody at the hotel would be going up to Everest Base Camp in a couple of days, and it turned out they would be willing to bring the rest of my uncle's ashes up with them. I thought of the faded photos my uncle brought home when I was a child, images of remote, majestic places. Base camp is a pilgrimage site in its own right, a place for those who praise the gods of unparalleled challenge and who worship nature's most dominant displays. It was the perfect place for my uncle. I handed off the ashes, a tiny pouch that had crossed half the world to return home. Then I boarded my flight. Over the next 30-plus hours drifting in and out of jet-lag reverie, I replayed the journey scenes, moments, images, ideas. It had been a trip of cycles: creation, preservation, destruction, birth, life, death, rebirth, endless and intertwined. My uncle's climb to Everest had shaped his life, and now it shaped mine. My plane descended into St. Louis, and I'd soon settle back into the familiar, but that's just part of the cycle, I guess. Just the normal, before another brief window of extraordinary significance. Where would it be? When would it arrive? I'll just have to wait and see. Another trip down, a cycle complete.
वास्ते जा भी दूं मैं गवाह माँ भी दूं किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं बदले में मैं तेरे जो खुदा खुद भी दे जन्नते सच कहूँ छोड़ दूं
तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया वास्ते जा भी दूं मैं गवाह माँ भी दूं किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं तेरे अलावा कोई भी ख्वाहिश नहीं है बाकी दिल में कदम उठाऊं जहाँ भी जाऊं तुझी से जाऊं मैं तेरे अलावा कोई भी ख्वाहिश नहीं है बाकी दिल में कदम उठाऊं जहाँ भी जाऊं तुझी से जाऊं मैं
तेरे लिए मेरा सफर तेरे बिना मैं जाऊँ किधर
तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया वास्ते जा भी दूं मैं गवाह माँ भी दूं किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं
बदले में मैं तेरे जो खुदा खुद भी दे जन्नते सच कहूँ छोड़ दूँ
तू ही है सवेरा मेरा तू ही किनारा मेरा तू ही है दरिया मेरा खुदा का जरिया मेरा तुझी से होता शुरू ये मेरा कारवां तुझी पे जाके खत्म ये मेरा सारा जहां
वास्ते